The New Year's loop. As the clock in the corner of the room neared midnight, Daniel stared at it with growing dread. Every year, the celebration of New Year's Eve felt like a hollow echo, as if time itself had grown tired of its annual cycle. Surrounded by friends, laughing, drinking, and counting down, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that this year would be different, that something terrible was about to happen. The familiar chant echoed from the partygoers, their excitement palpable, but Daniel stood frozen, his eyes fixed on the clock.
5, 4, 3.
His heartbeat quickened. Sweat beaded on his forehead. What was happening to him? Why couldn't he shake this sense of impending doom? It was as if the universe itself was preparing to crush him under the weight of time. 2, 1. The moment the clock struck midnight, the world around Daniel seemed to flicker. The room, once filled with laughter, became strangely still. The noise faded into a deep, hollow silence. Daniel blinked, disoriented. The lights overhead blinked out, only to return, casting the room in a dim, unfamiliar glow. But it wasn't the same room. Panic surged through Daniel's veins as he looked around. The same faces stared back at him, but something was wrong. The decorations were different, outdated, perhaps from a decade or more ago. The clothes people wore were out of style, and the television in the corner was showing a broadcast from a year he didn't recognize. "Happy New Year," someone shouted in the distance. A chill ran down his spine. The clock. It struck midnight again. What was happening? His heart thudded in his chest as the realization hit him. He wasn't just in another room. He wasn't even in the same year anymore. He had time traveled. His hands trembled as he stumbled backward, knocking over an old-fashioned drink trolley. The noise echoed across the room, but no one seemed to notice. Everyone was focused on the television, their faces illuminated by its strange glow. 5, 4, 3. The countdown began again, but this time Daniel wasn't sure he wanted to hear it. The countdown was inevitable. It always was. 2, 1. Midnight struck again. The world flickered. The party around him vanished. And once again, Daniel found himself in a new year, a new time, a new place. But something was darker here. The room was smaller, the decorations more faded, the air thicker with tension. And no one looked at him. Not a single person seemed to notice he was there. His chest tightened with panic. He tried to scream, but the words wouldn't come out. "Happy New Year," someone said, but their voice was hollow, empty, like a voice from a nightmare. He was stuck in the loop. Time wasn't just repeating. It was warping, twisting, pulling him deeper into its endless loop. Every time the clock struck midnight, he was thrust into a different year. Each time the world grew darker. The people were more distant, more silent. The once lively and joyous celebrations became twisted versions of themselves, as though the very concept of time had become corrupted, and he was its victim. The next year he entered was cold, a January blizzard visible outside the windows. Snowflakes drifted in the air, swirling around the dark silhouettes of partygoers, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. Daniel's breath came out in short bursts. His body shook. He couldn't keep up with the madness. He wanted to scream, to beg for release, but the words never left his throat. 5, 4, 3. Another countdown, another leap forward. 2, 1. Again. He was back in the same room, but it was older now. The walls were peeling, the furniture cracked and aged, as if time itself was eroding everything around him. He no longer recognized any of the faces, though they all seemed vaguely familiar. The people were ghost-like, their movements jerky, as if controlled by unseen forces. A television screen flickered in the corner, the static blurring, the image of an old broadcast appearing before his eyes. It showed the same countdown. The air smelled different this time. It was musty, sour, like rot had settled into the walls. He stumbled forward, desperately searching for a way out, but there was no exit, no door, only the clock, the countdown, the dread of what was coming next. 5, 4. It was almost too much. As the clock's hands crept closer to midnight once again, Daniel had to fight the overwhelming sense that he was losing himself. He felt himself being drawn into the relentless cycle. His memories, his thoughts, his very sense of self were starting to blur, erasing the distinction between the years. He was becoming part of the loop, swallowed by time itself. 2, 1. The world shifted again, but this time, when the clock struck midnight, something changed. The silence was more pronounced, the atmosphere more oppressive. His reflection in the mirror, the one that hadn't been there before, stared back at him with a twisted grin. Daniel recoiled, but it wasn't just his reflection. It was him, now. He was in the past, the future, and the present, all at once. Every year, every version of himself was stuck in the loop with him. There was no escape. He had become one with the cycle. Then a voice spoke, a voice from the darkness. "Welcome to eternity." Daniel turned, and for the first time in all the endless years, he saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was the man in the suit, a faint smile on his lips. "You're not the first, and you won't be the last," the figure said. "Every time you reach midnight, you'll be reborn into another New Year's Eve. You'll never be free." The figure stepped forward, the air around him thick with the scent of decay. His eyes were empty, hollow. "You've joined the others. The clock never stops." Daniel's world blurred, and he realized with a sinking heart, he was stuck, trapped in the endless looping void of time, forever reliving New Year's Eve as the seconds ticked away in a never-ending cycle. And there was no escaping midnight, for New Year's was eternal.